Hey everybody, two Alpha Gals here. I'm Debbie Nichols.
And I'm Candace Mathis, and you're listening to In the Tall Grass, where we're sharing stories of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering joy.
Whether it's facing Alpha Gal syndrome or any other redefining chapter of life, we all have to learn how to navigate the journey through the tall grass. So here we go.
So we are super excited to have Amanda Orlando here with us today. She is the founder of Free to Be Me events, three-time food allergy cookbook author, mother, and blogger at Everyday Allergen-free. And she is joining us from Toronto, Canada. So thank you for being here, Amanda.
Thank you for having me. How exciting.
We love it. We've been looking forward to talking to you for so long. So really, really excited to dive in with you. So I think first, if you could just share a little bit more about yourself and your journey living your entire life with food allergies. We would love to hear more about your story.
Yeah, wow. It's such a long story. But yeah, this is really the only life I've ever known. There was no adjustment phase. I was diagnosed at, I think I was 3 months old. And my list as a baby was much longer. I was also allergic to egg and chicken and a bunch of fruits and corn and all kinds of things. And I was very fortunate that I grew out of a bunch of my allergies by the time that I was like 7 years old. But a number of them remained, and that's okay. And we've added some new ones over the years, so always changing. But I would say that I definitely was more embarrassed about my food allergies when I was younger. And I feel like through blogging and through meeting other people in this community, I've really become a lot more comfortable with this side of myself. And certainly at this point, you could say that no part of me is trying to hide it anymore. It's like what I do all day, every day has to do with food allergies. So it's been a very long and winding journey.
I'm curious, when you say embarrassed, my head goes to sometimes how I would feel going into a restaurant and saying, I'm sorry, I have these food allergies. What do you mean when you say you were embarrassed by your food allergies? Was it sharing with other people or eating with other people? What made you embarrassed about it?
I think carrying a medical bag was like a super sensitive topic for me as a kid. I never wanted to carry my pouch. I was always trying to get rid of it. I didn't want to have it on me. I didn't want my classmates to know that there was anything, wrong with me. At the time, in the 90s, it was not quite as common as it is today to have food allergies. And there was definitely a stigma about kids with food allergies that we were all like losers and, had helicopter parents and were too sensitive. And it was just, I didn't want to be branded as that because I was a very confident kid. And it was really different how other people responded to allergies at the time. Like it was not uncommon for me as a teenager to be asked to leave a restaurant or even to be walked out of a restaurant and shown the door and like, thank you for not ordering here and please don't come back. So I hid it. I went to really, really great lengths to hide my food allergies. There were times, there were friends that I was very close with who didn't even know that I had allergies. I was just so used to like managing things behind the scenes and sort of throwing a blanket over stuff. And it just became my way of life. And you really can't do that forever. It's not healthy for yourself as a person. So I eventually came to realize that. But there were friends or there were even people that I dated who had no idea I had allergies. And I don't know how I covered it up or why I felt so strongly about the need to cover it up, but that's the position I was in.
Did you ever have
Sure.
reactions around any of those people, like during that time, like when you were
I had quite a few anaphylactic reactions as a kid, but never around friends. And I had a few reactions in university. And then by that point, obviously my roommates knew that something happened and took me to the hospital. And then it started to become clear to me that you really can't hide these things forever. So maybe that was the turning point. But I think it was probably when I was living on my own around the age of 17 when I realized, yeah, I can't not tell anyone about this. Like I'm sharing a kitchen with three other girls and we kind of have to chat about this. And I probably would go about it very differently today, but at least I brought it up, which for me was a big deal back then.
Yeah.
We're so glad you hit that turning point too, because you have so much to share and so much to offer the allergy community. So at this point, you're a 3-time cookbook author, and you shared with us a little bit about that turning point when you decided to share allergies with the people around you. But can you share a little bit more about when you realized you wanted to share and educate others about food allergies through cooking or through your recipes?
Well, the cookbook thing was like a family goal from the time that I was a little kid. Like I've been obsessed with cooking from before I could even reach the stove. It's always just been something that really made sense to me. So from the time I was really small, I always wanted to have a cookbook. And throughout the years, like it wasn't necessarily a food allergy cookbook, but just I wanted to write cookbooks. And when I graduated university, it became really, really important to me that I figure out how to do this. And I feel like my whole family was behind me and like this was something that it's my destiny to do. So I was just determined to make it happen.
I love that so much. And, like we've talked with, I think, was it Renea, Debbie, that we were talking about like voids create values in people. So like, like if you're missing something, which back in the 90s, like you said, it felt more of a loss for you growing up in that way versus maybe how a kid growing up with food allergies nowadays.
Yeah.
They're not, I feel like just the awareness and education has grown so much. And,
yes.
I love that. I love that your family like backed that. And I'm sure that probably sparked like some confidence in you too, to step more fully into your story, right? Like this is you, right?
Definitely. And something that I also always dreamed of as a kid was that I always wanted to cook on TV. That was like so important to me. But I really didn't even think that I was capable of doing that for so many years. And even when I was, entering the working world, I really didn't think that anyone would be interested in like a allergy-free cooking show. I just thought like, oh, no one's going to care. Like, I think because I had always sort of been told by others that like no one's interested in that or that it's somehow lesser. And it's only now I'm in my 30s and I'm finally starting to break into that world. And it has been difficult, let me tell you. And one of the things that I would say as a millennial, our generation, yeah, it was very stigmatized to grow up with allergies. But now we are out there working in media and, working in so many different sectors, and we understand food allergy life. And we are changing the landscape for the younger generation. And that makes me feel very, very proud. I'm going to get emotional. But
you can get emotional. We'll probably get emotional with you.
It makes me feel really proud to go on, other apps, like go on TikTok and see that there are so many influencers who are so open about their allergies and so many people care and follow them. Like when I started blogging about my allergies, there was me and 2 other women my age who were blogging about our personal adult journeys with allergies, and that was it. And it's like now it's just a totally different landscape, and it's very exciting to see because when I was younger, I never ever thought that I would see that. So, and it's through people who understand food allergy life that I've been able to produce my cookbooks or do my morning show segments and things like that. And we all reach out a helping hand to others like ourselves. We see the opportunity and we lift each other up. And it's extremely important. And I'm not going to cry.
It is so important. And we're so grateful to you because you are a huge influence in that, right? You're showing people that it's okay to talk about this, that it's okay to be like this. And I've got more that I'm going to segue into a question later, but I'm going to try to tuck that away for a minute so that we can stay on task. But thank you so much for sharing this because as someone with food allergies who sees how exclusive it can be sometimes, we say all the time that it's all about giving up things. It's all about sacrifices. Living with allergies is all about sacrifice. And so it's so great to see how you are pulling people together and showing them that we are as much a part of the world as everybody else. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, last year, I'm sorry if this is off topic, but
no.
Last year, I was really, really pushing so hard to try to get like media coverage of food allergies or try to get on a morning show. And I was like trying to work with different brands outside of the food allergy world. I was really, really trying to break through. And I felt like I was having a life crisis because every single time I reached out to a company, which I was like hitting this hard every day, every time I reached out to anyone, I was constantly told, oh, you're talented, you're great. But are you always gonna like, do you only write about food allergies? Or like, I guess you're only ever gonna write from a food allergy perspective. And I was like constantly told that my opinion was not valued. And I even had potential clients tell me, like, but why would we hire you when we could hire a normal person who doesn't have any restrictions? And it just blew my mind. And I felt like I'm never gonna break through. And so to this year have finally broken through even a little bit. It just feels like monumental. Like I could just scream. I could just like run through a field and scream with joy.
Yeah, because you were really like, you were in that generation that was pioneering being a kid with food allergies into an adult with food allergies.
Yeah.
And Debbie and I went to the summit through FAIR. We met some other people that were your age that we talked a lot about that. You know, there's a lot of focus on how to navigate a child with food allergies, but there's not a lot of talk about the transitional piece of how do you go from being a child into a young adult. And I'd love to know, do you have any advice for the parents that are navigating that with their children, but also to the new young adult that is, you know, blossoming out of their childhood with food allergies?
Yeah. So, okay. So for the person who has allergies, the young adult, I would say don't be afraid to be like different than everyone else or to be odd in some way, because those are really the things that make you so special. And when you're in high school, everyone's just trying to be normal and fit in. And the second you graduate, everyone's trying to be different. And it's such a stark contrast. And like, guess what? You already have something that makes you different. And if you embrace it and approach it in such a positive way, it can be this incredibly beautiful thing. It can be something from which you can find comedy, you can find drama, like you can find so much there and you can connect with other people and it can be like a superpower. So I think that's something really important to know. I had a really hard time in high school, and as soon as it was over, I was like, oh my God, there's something different about me. This is great. This is amazing. Um, and for the parent, I would say it can be really tempting to kind of make everything nice and logistically organized for your food allergy kid. But I think part of empowering them is to hand over the reins and to let them do things for themselves, because that's where you build the strongest skills. And you can still guide them and sort of fill in the gaps where needed. But if you let them order for themselves in restaurants, contact manufacturers themselves, coordinate with their friends about what restaurant they're going to go to, you're really empowering them to be able to do it for themselves. Because the second you move out, guess what? It's on you as a kid. You can't call your mom to do everything and arrange everything for you. So the earlier you learn to do it yourself, the better you will be at it by the time you're completely independent.
That's great advice. That's really great advice. And I love how you drew the distinction that different is special, right? And I think it definitely is easier for us as adults coming into this. You know, there's not quite the same level of exclusion. And frankly, kids can be so unkind sometimes. I mean, adults can too, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But when you're in school and you stand out as someone different, that has a huge impact.
Yeah,
and so
it
thinking
really does.
of different as special, I think, is a really great way to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, especially if you're equipping kids with tools as well, like you were suggesting.
Yeah.
So I got to thinking the other day in the car, I was thinking about this conversation we were going to have, and specifically about your Free to Be Me event, which I would love to hear more about. But one thing that struck me as I was thinking about this prior to this conversation was that was just what you were sort of commenting on earlier, that especially back in the 90s or earlier, when you were a kid with food allergies in the school, it was all about exclusion. And we see that and we hear that even now, you know, when we're at these summits or meetings or conferences or whatever, we hear other parents saying, you know, you talk about the food allergy table, right? Where the kids with food allergies are sort of exiled to go sit at, and they're put aside there. But what I love about your retreat, your event that you're planning, is that it is exactly the opposite of that. That is saying, come to this event it's especially for you. Everyone is welcome here, no matter what stage of this you're at. And I have chills talking about this because I think that is such a need in the food allergy community to be included. And so can you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind creating this for the allergy community?
Sure. I didn't realize this podcast was going to be so emotional. Okay, yes. Here we go. I love it though. So on that note, the venue at which this is taking place is Toronto's oldest schoolhouse. And the reason that I wanted to do it there was because I thought we need to reclaim a school. And the school is also beautiful and like in a beautiful neighborhood. But I thought we need to reclaim a school and make it a place of inclusion, because that is just something that we all understand. So it's taking place in Toronto's oldest schoolhouse in the heart of the city, close to the historic distillery district. And it is going to be a gathering of people who are like-minded, part of the food allergy community, who really want to thrive and accept who they are and have this wonderful day focused on well-being and mental well-being, especially. This is a wellness event that is truly curated for the needs of people with food allergies or parents of kids with food allergies. And I'm really listening very closely to everyone's feedback online. And the amount of programming has doubled in the time that I've started organizing the event, because I heard from parents that it was really important that there is separate programming for how to manage your child with food allergies versus teens and adults managing their own food allergies. And this whole wellness retreat started out as this small idea, like, oh, I haven't hosted a food allergy community event in years. The world is opening up again. What can I do? And it started as like a little local thing. And now it has become this ginormous event, which I have a way of doing that. And people are coming from all over. We have people coming from California and like all over the US and Vancouver. And like, it's really amazing that, people are obviously seeking out this connection and this community. So the structure of the event is that Friday night, people arrive, whether you're local, whether you're flying in. We have a little social, people can sign in, get their name badge, do some fun photos and whatever, and just like have a really chill time. And then Saturday is a full day. So it goes from doors open at 8 a.m. And it goes until 5 p.m. And it starts out in the morning. We have a guided meditation. We have a breakfast. We have 2 workshops. So we have improv and we have an art therapy workshop. Then we have lunch. We have a lunch and learn with Food Allergy Canada, which is a great time for people to voice their concerns about advocacy, not just in Canada. I think it's important to talk about, our needs as North America, really. Like there's a lot of crossover, a lot of companies that sell in both countries. And then in the afternoon, we move into the speaker session. So this is where it gets divided, and people can choose whatever session they want to go to. But there is a youth panel who's going to be speaking. I think parents will find that very enlightening to hear from youth what they're going through today. And then there's also going to be a self-confidence session with Anisha Angela. She's the author of Zoe Has an Allergy, and she's also a certified early childhood education specialist. And she has quite a lot of experience. So she's going to do a book signing. She's also going to do a talk. She's a great speaker, so that's really, really cool. We have Tamara Hubbard coming. She's a food allergy therapist, and it was so important to me to get her to speak at the event because I heard from like tons of adults recently, now that we're all going to restaurants again and socializing, that they really needed some mental health support, and that it's very, very hard to find a therapist who understands food allergies. And I've been there myself. I used to go to therapy, and sometimes I felt like I just had to explain food allergy life. And then, I never got the clarity that I needed from the therapist. So having Tamara there is going to be really special. We're going to close the day with another guided meditation. And there's one more speaker session who I'm still finalizing. So to be revealed soon. But it's quite a full day. It's a very full day. And yeah, and all the meals are catered by Brenda Kwong Hing, who is the mom of Courtney Kwong Hing, who's an allergy blogger, and she's also one of my best friends. So her mom's a chef and caterer, and it's just going to be a splendid event. It's going to be
That's
amazing.
amazing. And we had the opportunity to work with Courtney a little bit with Zestful.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah, they highlighted Alpha Gal and just amazing. I would love to go. Debbie, can we go?
I know. I was thinking that. I almost texted you. I was like, we've got to find a way to get there. I don't want to miss this, man. I need this so bad in my life.
I know. And I love how, I love the deep thoughtfulness behind this as this all-encompassing, like true self-care, which I feel like in talking to Tamara and also Dr. Paige Freeman, we talk a lot about like self-compassion and how do you cultivate that, right? Like if this is kind of a new world for you, it can be really hard. I think as women, especially, being self-compassionate is, we could have a whole conversation just on that.
Yes.
It's hard, right? Because we're putting our kids first or others' needs before our own. And I love that this is encompassing that on so many levels. Like the depth of it's so beautiful. And I also would love to know about the improv side of this, because that to me is new, of the like humor side. Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
Oh yes, gladly. So improv has played a ginormous role in my life. Just the message behind improv is yes and whatever is delivered to you, it's like yes and what can I do from here? Yes and what can I give back? And not saying no and stopping things, because when you say no, everything comes to a halt. But when you say yes, what can I do here? What can I offer? That's when things move forward. And it's really a mindset. The whole improv workshop, there is some humor in it, of course, but it's not about having people be funny as much as it is about like learning to think on your feet. And really the message behind it is self-empowerment and self-confidence. And I think for a lot of people, just speaking on the fly can be really uncomfortable. But when you have food allergies, you have to do that a lot. You have to speak up at the restaurant. You have to speak up to your family. And we receive a lot of no. And what can you do with that no? How can you change it? How can you react? That's really what this session is all about. It's the greater meaning of the improv session is how can we improve our self-advocacy and how can we sort of yes and our way through life with this positive mindset and the knowledge that we're capable of advocating for ourselves. And I've done improv for years, and I just think it's the most life-changing, like beautiful skill that you can hone. And I don't want people to be too nervous about it, because when I first started improv, I was very, wary of what it was going to be. But we're not going to put you up in the middle, put you up on a stage and make you do stand up or anything like that. It's more about, I would say, activities to boost your leadership and your confidence.
And I think that, that sounds like such an amazing tool, right? Like it's not something I would have ever thought about. How about you, Deb?
No, the same thing. Actually, I just made a note because I wanted to be sure that I addressed that when we got to it, because I was thinking in the creation of this event, you were thinking so far outside the box, right? And yet it's still filling exactly the needs of this community, right? You're just doing it sort of in a different way, but you're speaking to what people are telling you they need. I think it's beautiful. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Thank you. And on top of it all, it's going to be such a groovy retreat because I just love color and I love things to be really over the top. So that's what you can expect.
We love over the top.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I love it. And so there's this running theme of mindset and, self-care, mental health matters, nurturing our mental health. So has that always been something that's been really important to you, or was there kind of like this pivotal moment? I know you said earlier about moving out and being 17 at university. Were you thinking along those lines at that young age, or was it later in life?
I can probably pinpoint the moment when I said, oh, mental health is important. And I would have to say, I was probably like 28 when it happened. It was not at 17. I wish. No, I never really prioritized my mental health. And, I held on to a lot of anxieties. I held on to things that weren't serving me. I'm going to say social situations, friendships, things like that, where my mental health was not really valued, or when I had anaphylactic episodes, I never ever took care of my mental health after. I would just let those feelings build. And I had a lot of really deep anxieties. I had things that were like crippling me mentally. I had a hard time going to work. I developed all kinds of like physical issues because I was ignoring my mental health. And I was also ignoring the path that I really wanted to go down with my life. And it got to a point where I felt so extremely overwhelmed and so anxious. And yeah, I had all these things physically were falling apart. Half of my face was numb. I had like welts on my mouth. I had like hearing loss from tinnitus. I had like, it was just crazy. I was in my mid 20s and I could barely make it through the day sitting at work. Like I was in physical pain. And I totally blew up my life and just like spontaneously quit my career one day. And I was like, I need to figure my stuff out.
Yeah.
And I cannot continue living this way. Like this is unhealthy. And we have sort of like how would I describe it? It's like a functional medicine clinic, like a private medical clinic.
Okay.
And I just had them do a physical top to bottom. And at the end, the doctor was like, you have crippling anxiety. And he prescribed a bunch of supplements. And he was like, I'm also going to prescribe you meditation. And this is the most important thing. And I thought it was total bull at first. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm kind of like a hippie person, but I was like, I don't know. Meditation just feels like it's fake. And then I did it once and I was like, oh my God, this is the most powerful thing I've ever done. So I became totally addicted to it. And I thought, wow, I should have tried this earlier. I mean, I always did yoga and stuff like that, but it was more just for fun. Like I never tapped into the mental side of it. And that really started my road to mental well-being, I would say. And then improv came shortly after that. And now I meditate almost every single day. This is crazy. I actually meditated my way through like 40 something hours of my labor with no medication. Like I was just meditating. It's such a powerful tool. It's so powerful. I know that's also a horrendous story. I won't.
No, I think that's a fantastic story for people to hear.
It's terrifying.
Need to hear this because I was a birth doula for like 8 years. So anything is like, is totally right up my alley.
Oh, I had doulas. Oh my God. We were like obsessed with our doulas. They were amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. Just the support, right? And so how long do you meditate each day? Do you do it like multiple times a day?
Okay. Before having a child, I would meditate like probably a solid hour once a day.
Okay.
Now, if I can get 10 minutes, I'm happy. I'll take what I can get.
Sure. That's motherhood in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I want to thank you for sharing what you just did about mental health, because I know a lot of people can be resistant to it. Not enough people are talking about it in the food allergy world. I definitely think, but there are so many reasons to be resistant to it, right? I don't have time. It feels selfish caring for myself in this way. It's a bunch of hoo-ha. Right. Which, I don't believe any of that actually, but I think it's so important for you to share how not caring for your mental health was actually linked directly to your physical health as well. So for anybody out there listening, there's a lot of reasons to start addressing your mental health and self-care and self-compassion and just allowing yourself to heal in other ways, right? Because, our bodies we're basically fighting with our bodies, especially with alpha-gal. It feels like we're in this constant fight. And to have the tools to get you through each day, to have someone who can guide you and tell you that you're, give you new ways to think about things. I think, it's priceless. So thank you for sharing that, because that's getting vulnerable too. Like I like to talk as much as I can about my own experiences with mental health. And I know Candace does the same, because I just want more people to hear about the benefits that it's had for me, and obviously for you and for Candace, because it's made a difference in this journey, a huge difference in this journey.
Totally. And I also think when we ignore mental health, or we ignore things that are ailing us, it can also have an impact on us doing what we're meant to do with our lives. And when it starts to have an impact on those bigger life decisions because we have so much anxiety, that's an issue too, right? Because maybe there are things, gifts that we have to give and we are not making use of them. So I know I've experienced that in my life. I actually shared a reel recently about dating with food allergies. And I've been asked about dating a lot over the years. And I've always kind of shared like funny little stories and how I dodged a kiss or whatever. But really, like the deeper feeling behind that was that I had anxiety that someone wouldn't love me if they knew I had allergies. Their family wouldn't accept me. I would be too much of a hassle. That's the real underlying mental health issue, is feeling not worthy. And that's something that once I addressed it, I was able to move forward with my life. You know, there's all these deeper layers to things when you have a medical condition. And I think that the way that we share mental health advice or experience online is also really important, because anxiety is sticky. And the way that we talk about it, you know, some people feel really triggered when they read about it online, and other people can read about it with no problem. So it's like an art. I can't say I've perfected it. I've done things and people have said, oh my God, that was so triggering. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And there are other times when it really helps people. So it's such a complex thing.
Oh, it absolutely is. You said something that made me think of something else that Candace and I have sort of incorporated into this journey that we're doing together, talking about letting that mental health, the negative mental health space sort of get in the way of following your dreams. So from the beginning of this, you know, where we're trying to figure out how to put together two alpha gals, we came up with our purpose and our mission pretty quick, but then putting that into action took a lot of work. And Candace and I would tell each other, breathe deep and follow the path. And so anytime that I start to get, and I'm telling myself this out loud because I was telling Candace this morning, I don't know how I'm going to manage all this week, you know, and what I needed to tell myself was to breathe deep and follow the path and just trust it and be at peace with it. And whatever it takes you to get there, whether it's meditation or anything else. And like you're saying, it's different for everybody, but it's been so helpful to me. And I feel like every time I incorporate that, it helps me see a little bit clearer on where I'm supposed to go and where I'm supposed to be, maybe even who I am.
Totally. I mean, I feel like you guys really busted out onto the scene. Like, I feel like you're everywhere. It's very exciting.
It's all our talk about diarrhea, I think. We joke about that because we said it in our very first podcast, and it was like the first thing I said when we hung up the phone. I was like, how many times did I say that? And I guess people like to hear it because here we are.
Yeah, there you are.
Well, I think it's like, you know, Amanda, how you said that you kind of hit that wall, right, in your 20s. And I feel like looking back on my journey, I was flatlined overnight. And I had been like super busy all the time, running kids here and there, and like feeling like I was on my purposeful path, but not totally. I don't know. It was a really weird, like I remember feeling like there's more. And then it was like, bam, like I was just bulldozed. And in that, like the stillness of all of that, I had to get real with myself. And it was hard as hell. Like I didn't want to confront it, you know, like it. But then once you take like the micro step toward it, and you start to see like these sudden or subtle like shifts, then you're like, well, wait, you know, you keep taking the next step. And I don't know, like we always say, like, you don't know until you know, right? Like you don't know how good you feel until you feel different. And then like the cloud lifts and all of that. And we say all the time, it's like, just take the next step.
So very well said. That was just amazing.
You know, I don't know. It's just important. And I think a lot of just the stigma behind mental health and all of that, like it is so complex because we all have different stories. We all have different life experiences, childhoods, you know, there's a lot to unravel individually. But if we can just face the hard stuff and like walk through it and not try to go around it, like I don't know, there's beauty. And like you said, then you might be walking into your purpose and you don't even realize that the cloud has lifted. I don't know. It's been very transformative. So we wanted to share very vulnerably, just like you are. And I think this is why we were drawn to you, because it's our collective voices, right? If we can do something to share and to encourage one other person to make a shift and have healing.
All this talk about following the path and how hard it can be, Candace and I talk a lot about joy, right? Like trying to stay focused on that, focus on how we're going to get there. And one of the things that Candace and I both find a lot of joy in is music. And I think part of that is because we don't react to it. Like it's never, ever an issue for our allergy. And so we listen to a lot of music. We talk a lot about music. And so we like to ask our guests if there is a song or an artist or an album or some piece of music that inspires joy in you. And it can be today, it can be, in this moment or in this piece of the journey, or it can be for all time, whatever piece of music. Is there one that sort of brings you joy?
There is. So yeah, definitely. I listen to a lot of George Harrison and the Beatles. I feel like that's my feel-good music. I usually start out the morning. I have like a morning playlist that my son and I listen to, and we like to dance a little bit before we start our day. But there's also this composer, his name's Max Richter. And he has this amazing composition, this album where it's like inspired by each of the different seasons. And it's a classical style of music, but he's a modern composer. And it ignites something in my brain that's like the most euphoric feeling. So I listen to it a lot. I'm very much like that with music. If I find something that connects, it's like I'll listen to the same song like 200 times in a day, and I can't get tired of it. It's like this constant hit of, dopamine or serotonin or whatever the feel good one is. It's like
right.
just keeps going. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because I think I do the exact same thing, right? If there's a piece of music, and there is, that just every time I hear it, it lifts me up in a way. It distracts me from the yuck that's going on in my life, right? Like I can really in that moment experience joy. If that's what I need to do, is to put it on repeat and just play it over and over and over again, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Totally.
Yeah.
Same. I love it. And I think I saw like a documentary or a snippet on NPR or something about that composer. I'm going to have to go look at it.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember if it's the same composer, it was captivating.
Well, once you hear his music, you'll realize that you've heard it all over the place, because he's in everything. Like you'll hear it in TV shows. Like he just recently did the music for a ballet. Like he's everywhere. Music is just so amazing.
Yep. Love it. It's so healing. It's definitely a huge part of our lives. So
yeah.
Love it. We're gonna have to go check it out.
For sure.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Amanda, for joining us today in this amazing conversation. We are so excited about your Free to Be Me event, and Debbie and I now have to go make some travel plans.
People can find out more about the event at freetobeme.ca, or you can find me on Instagram at freetobemeevents.
Awesome. And we will link all of that in the show notes as well for people to find. So thank you again for your time. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining us today on In the Tall Grass. Visit us at 2alphagals.com. That's TWOalphagals.com. Or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at 2alphagals. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a review and help us grow this community.
We're all faced with obstacles on our journey, whether it be food allergies or tick-borne diseases. You might outgrow the reactions, but you won't outgrow the person you become. Ticks suck, but life doesn't have to.